some great ideas that came out of our session takeaway were to really teach maybe at your state meetings and facilitate the whole process, and then maybe even have small breakout tables and have one leader per table actually help those local networks open up their computers and solve any problems right there on the spot. So that was one takeaway. Another one was group texting, and then following up with even more connection, and just knowing that you really care and don't worry about doing anything wrong. We're really here to help, and just be gentle and guiding and helping and facilitating to get that message across. So they are open, and they want your help and want to go forward in your learning and whatnot. And then of course our very, very fun contests on all different levels, just to get everyone excited and thrilled about re-engaging.
So Stacy, I have a question on that. Were there any specific contest ideas that were thrown out? Because I'm sure the other rooms are probably wondering, what contest did y'all talk about?
Well, one of the contests that was brought up is one that Texas is facilitating right now, and they are actually using different percentages for different sizes of networks. So a large network wouldn't be necessarily competing against a small or medium. So respectively, all networks in their sizes are contest in the same groups. But what they're doing as a state is they are giving a free orientation, which is a value of I think about $260 to go to their state orientation to even get further engagement and further learning and education. So that was a really good takeaway.
Awesome. Great. Chris or Sheila, which one of you had room 2, or do you know? Sheila did?
I had room 2.
Okay.
Gosh, I had a great group of people, and we had talked about actual ways to engage the members to make sure that these items were being done. We talked about using Zoom as well as BombBomb, which is a video email that embeds as well as text. There was mention that there was a program called Loom that can also attach with a video. But basically having a quick checklist of these are your things or your goals that we need by the end of X date, or you've got a month to work on it. That way that they could have a quick reference of the checklist of what was necessary, kind of breaking down the parts so it was a little easier. And also being able to text as well as email, but do it more in a video format. So they were actually trying to engage a little easier than just an email. And so we also talked about who would actually do these, be in charge of the responsibilities, and it depends upon the size of your state network, but we were anywhere from the president-elect to the state liaison to the state president and the state liaison, as well as a project team. So if you are not putting more responsibility on the officers themselves, that you would have a group of people that would even actually break down the components of it, as well as maybe the district vice presidents would be responsible for certain components. And then of course, one person or a project team would be in charge of breaking down the components to share in the wealth of the responsibility. And then that way one person could be in charge, or a team could be in charge of getting the data back to make sure that these items had been done, to make sure that the checklist was completed. So we had some great ideas. And I love the fact that we were talking about, large to small, of how the states could actually handle the responsibility and the duties of making sure these items get done.
Absolutely. I love that. Chris, room 3.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the Texas contest also, and how to help the local networks with that recruiting retention bit. And it was brought up that DVPs are doing a video for the whys of Women's Council benefits and whatnot, so that the local networks can then use. So they have a tool. It's a face that people might know. It's not something pushed down from national, but it's more personalized to that specific area. But we also talked about how people learn in different ways, and some people are getting video tired and Zoom tired. And while video is a great way to get a message out, there's no one silver bullet for communication, as we know. There's no one great way that will hit everybody, that everybody will pay attention to. So maybe when they're sending out the video, to send out a transcript with it in the email. You know, YouTube will do transcripts. There are video tools that'll do that for you pretty easily. So that if I get an email and I don't want to watch another video, I can skim the email and I see what the message is. So I'm still getting the message. And it was brought up too that other people might need a little more hand holding. They might need you to come sit down next to them and say, click this here, see that button, the login one, the blue one, click it. You know what I mean? We're all, our attention spans are different. They're, you know, nanoseconds at this point, and we're doing 19 million things. And sometimes we just need to take a breath and remember that there are people on the other end of it and make it personal. And because we're systemizing maybe a little bit too much and take it back to that personal level. And especially the smaller states, they're working more one-on-one, they're more hands-on, kind of like the local networks. And the bigger states, I think, need to kind of remember that as well, and how to work with the local networks in a more one-on-one, hands-on type of way. Making it easier for the local networks, like a step-by-step, it was brought up, we need a step-by-step, more like when you buy furniture and it's here's how you build it. There's not even words on it. It's just a picture because of the translation has been lost somewhere. So just making it that easy for our local networks on a personal basis, just say, okay, just do this, just do that. The microsites did come up and the frustrations with that our members are feeling, the local leaders, I should say, are feeling. And it's largely, it sounds like historical because in the past it's been a problem. And I brought up again, look, starting next year, we're going to have one admin network login. So it's not going to be every officer has a network login. And if 4 of the 5 officers are able to, but the one's not, then all you hear about is the one that isn't, and then nothing's getting done. So take the time perhaps now, and even at the state levels, to appoint, hey, you're our technology chair. We're going to have you log in. Everyone just feed your stuff to that person. Betty Jo's going to put it online because it was brought up that the importance of the microsite, the idea was to have one central location to go to for everything. So if you know there's an event coming up but you can't remember when, and you're searching your email and you're looking on Facebook and you're looking on the microsite and it's blank. And I mean, how much time do we spend just trying to chase down what events we know are going on in our local networks? So it's really important that we do help our network leaders through that we do encourage them to use the microsites. And you know what, scrap the 5 logins. Who cares who's logging in? You know, if it's this title or that title, it doesn't even matter. The information just needs to be able to be found and be out there because we know they're doing the work. We know they're having these events. We just can't find them. So to encourage them that way and to do that at the state level as well.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all. Did anyone, and feel free to unmute yourself for just a second. Did anyone hear an idea during the share that made you think, oh my goodness, wait, if I just couple this and this together, it's this big like brainchild? Is there anything you heard that you want to add to so that we can all benefit from hearing? Shauna, I see your hand raised physically.
So on our call, I really thought this was a good idea. One of the requirements is to have a Google Drive or Dropbox or some fashion where you're organizing all your files. And one of the networks mentioned that they have implemented a Google Calendar across where they're placing all the information. So you could place all of the checklist items with the associated date and invite your network presidents to those calendar events. They put them in as an all-day event. And then they have their associated Google Drive where they can then go and place in their file folder if there is a file that is associated, so that when they go to submit it between August and October, everything's already kind of being built in one place and their reminders are all on the calendar. And then the other very simple idea that was said, but I didn't really hear it mentioned here, is it was mentioned that many of our presidents are now very overwhelmed since Friday. And so we need to remind them that what they're being asked to do, they're actually already doing. and they just saw it all in one place. And so it's a compliment to them that they're already actually doing all of this and not to be overwhelmed. And so there was a lot of discussion on personally reaching out to each president, checking in with them. How are you doing? If you're overwhelmed, how can we help you? So this is a great opportunity for the states to really touch their presidents and maybe ease some people's minds around the process, and that they have an amazing state network to help them through this process. So it's a great opportunity to start making some really quick phone calls and ensure your network presidents aren't going to go off the rails, because in some states, in my session, there's presidents going off the rails right now because they're freaking out. So
Absolutely.
great reason to make calls.
And we don't want them to freak out. Some of the highlights of what you said, who can you throw them under the bus? Who suggested they're going to make a Google Calendar? Because if we could get that.
If you could speak up who said that I can't see all the faces right here, but they've already created it. If you can unmute and say who you are.
It's just Mary. This is Mary Beth from Virginia. Yeah, and we did create the Google Calendar. So at the end of last year, I took all the dates that we already had, the 2021 dates, etc., and made them all-day events on the calendar. So they're highlighted at the top of each date that there's a due date, and then they get a reminder the week before that a date is coming up. But if they pull up the calendar, like by the month or the week, they can easily see, because of the way they're all-day events, what items are coming due. So they can look ahead on a regular basis. So, but they do get that reminder ahead of time so that they know it's coming.
I love that, Mary Beth, and I can assure you that either myself or Chris, because we're both very high C's, are going to be reaching out.
It's not my calendar, it doesn't exist.
So I can assure you we're going to be reaching out to you to try and make that some kind of template or something so that we can get to all states to be able to help them do this. And Shauna, another point, and Paige, I see your hand. I'm going to get to you in just 1 second. Shauna, another point to what you said is, yes, please reach out. You know, initially we wanted to do this state training first because of Mother Nature and issues going on in Texas. We could not do a Zoom last Wednesday. So we had to reschedule this because we did want you to be able to learn first prior to your locals. But as we had electricity, we did not want to postpone them either because we had great attendance. So do reach out to them, do work with them. If you have, I think it was maybe Chris or Sheila's group, breaking out the states. For example, I know that Massachusetts has 4 networks, right, Allison? 3 networks. But as Allison, as the state liaison, that's a lot of work for her to work with all 3 of those networks to do this, plus do just general state liaison work and try and run a business. We don't want to overtax any of our leaders. So it works great if they either divide it up by network, like the president works with one network, the president-elect works with another network, and the state liaison works with a network, or if they divide the report in different sections. I can't remember who suggested that, but it is too much work for one person to help all the locals achieve success, because I know you all want them to achieve success. And putting all that on one person is going to be a lot of work. So dividing it up is going to be the key to this, and having a good conversation after this training with your state officers on how are we going to do this? What's it going to look like in X state? How are we going to make this work for us? Will be great. Paige, you've moved on my screen, but I know you had your hand raised.
I did. So one of the things in Florida that we have noticed is our networks, and I'm sure it's happening across the nation, they are not utilizing project teams. And I really want to encourage everybody to encourage your local networks to utilize this, especially if they're feeling overwhelmed. The people in those boardrooms are continuing to try to do everything. They're still trying to do all the events themselves. They're still doing that committee work in that boardroom. And I really want, I just want to encourage everyone to really encourage the local leaders to utilize those project teams. That's how they're going to find those leadership benchmarks at the local level and pulling those people up. That's how you tag people for future leadership. And I really feel like they're missing the boat there. So I just want to encourage everybody to do that.
Absolutely agree, Paige.
Absolutely.
That's great information. I know, I'll just throw her under the bus. Sharon is on here and she's a past state president from Texas, and she was on local training and state training. And that's a great use of someone as a project team leader that is maybe not having to hold the network together, but they're able to do this behind the scenes to work on this and, you know, reach out to the president when they need something, or reach out to, you know, a treasurer when they need something, or whatever. That's a great use of project teams, and to, like you said, engage new members and get them started on their leadership journey. All right. Is there anybody want to add anything to the sharing of ideas of how you can facilitate this in your state? If not, we're going to answer a couple questions for you and then allow you to have any other questions too.
Sylvia, there's a question in the chat
Mhm.
from Wendy. What is Unicorn Google Calendar? Can you please share?
Renee?
To Renee.
Hey there. Hi, thank you for letting me just listen in. I am only a district vice president here in California, and I love hearing what you guys are doing on the national level. But in California, we have a unicorn calendar. I think it's named from our green Eileen, and we have all events on there and information and deadlines and submissions. So it really helps us with our state and keeping track of our network. So it's for our network's benefits, and keeps the state in line on all of our events, because as we know, they can be overwhelming. So just something to share, that the unicorn calendar can have a lot of things on it. It's our Google Calendar, and we share it with all of our networks.
That's what I was going to ask. Was it a subscribed Google Calendar that everyone can put events and deadlines on? Perfect. We did have the question earlier that I wanted to go back and address, and that was on retention rate and new members. As a state network, it's a little bit harder for you to get retention rate and new members recruited. So our suggestion is going to be, this is a communication point. Remember, this whole report is a self-assessment, both for you as a state as well as the local networks for their report. This is a communication report. Maybe you put it on that calendar for April 30th to reach out to each local president and say, okay, we're past the renewal period. The renewal period is through March 31st. How many members renewed? What's your retention rate? And so if I'm in Texas, because I know Texas, and I could say, okay, Collin County, what's your retention rate? Okay, Dallas, what's your retention rate? And then I average all this together, I'm pretty much going to get a good estimate of what the retention rate in Texas is. This is, again, it's an estimate. We don't need to know the exact number, the exact percentage, but we want you aware of your numbers. And by you being aware of your numbers, it makes your local presidents and your local membership directors aware of their numbers, because when you're not watching your numbers, you really don't know where you are. And you can do that as well later on in the year. How many new members have you recruited this year? Or maybe it's a monthly conversation you have, and just really start having those conversations. I know it's sad that we're tired of Zoom, we're tired of videos, we're tired of this, but sometimes we just want to pick up the phone and call and talk to someone. And sometimes they just need a phone conversation and give you something to talk about, not necessarily like you're hounding them. Just, you know, how's the new recruiting going? What are y'all doing? What can I do to help you? Or let's brainstorm an idea. And through those conversations, you're getting the intel you need, as well as getting them brainstorming and them thinking outside the box and leading them to creating more value for their members. Let's see, are there any, is that clear to help you get retention rates and recruiting for the state? Just really a conversation. You don't need to try and calculate anything or look through membership rosters and all of that. Local networks should really be aware of what their numbers are. Do we have any other questions? Feel
don't
free to
see-
ask or put it in chat. I mean, there's not that many of us, so you can unmute yourself if you have a question, or are y'all excited? I know the locals are a little overwhelmed, and I know that because it was just thrown at them. But the training, literally, we did the training line item by line item. So if they are alone submitting the report, they can be playing the video on one screen or their phone or something and knowing exactly what goes in each line item. We want all our networks to succeed. This was not made to make people fail. This was to make them all succeed and raise the level of our leaders and our members and not water down our brand. There is nothing abnormal we're asking on either report, local or state. It really is from your model, your local model and your state model. And so I know that they're overwhelmed thinking because they're seeing it all in one place, but it's really what they're already doing or should already be doing.
Yeah. And just a reminder, the documents that are on the website are drafts. So we suggest that you print out the PDF as it sits on the website at this point in time. We will be making some slight adjustments to it, but it's not a final copy, but it's not going to change a great deal. So, but you can certainly use the draft there as your model to what you need to be getting done. And then we will have, in another month or so, we will have the final document up. Is it sooner than a month, Jeff? It's going to be a fill-inable document. But once they sit down, and you guys, when you sit down to fill out the document, you have to complete it. It won't save it. So unless you save a copy for yourselves. So make sure that you don't input some information today and then think you can go back to it and fill it in. It's not going to be that kind of document. Okay. So just keep checking the website for the final document, but there are 2 drafts sitting on the website right now.
And for your online application, you cannot submit before August 1st, so don't even worry about it.
Right.
Literally print the document, have it by your desk, jot down the information, the numbers, like Jamie said, so you're just transcribing when you go to submit your report.
Right.
Make it easier for yourself.
Exactly.
All right. If there's no other questions, what numbers for how long and how often? I'm not understanding.
Okay, that was me. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna put myself out there. This is Shirley in Texas, and you were talking about, yes, you can figure out what the retention numbers are, and I'm thinking, okay, so how do I figure these retention numbers? Is it the total number of members that we have per month, and then see how many of those have expired in the past? Because I'm not quite sure how I get those numbers.
Okay, Shirley. So first of all, this is the state training. So
I know.
Probably everything you watched is even more confusing because it's not the local training. But to figure out your retention rate, you're going to look at your members that renewed through March 31st. And it will show you it's an annual, not a monthly number that you're looking at. After March 31st, you're going to be able to see who has renewed and who dropped off. And so if January 1, you had 100 members and you're going to subtract out, so we're say April 15th, we're looking at it. January 1, you had 100 members. On April 15th, you have, I don't know, 102 members. That is not 100% retention rate because you need to subtract out what new members you had. So, because just by looking at numbers, it's gonna look like you had 2 new members, but maybe you actually had 12 new members. And so you had 90% retention rate because 90 of those renewed during the renewal period. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I apologize, but I missed the local because of other things. So I thought I'd join in on this one, and I appreciate your help.
go and look at the local report. It'll be a little less confusing for you.
I saw it. I
Um,
saw it. I'm going to go ahead and look at it. Thank you.
Yeah, and the online training is already there, and this online training will be available before the end of day. So I hope that helps you. And for state leaders, I hope that helps you to explain how to calculate retention rate for your local numbers, your local members. Of course, if they're not easy numbers like 100, it's figured out a little different. But Carolyn, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, so we were talking about it earlier about the local networks doing their own with the membership. If you put it in an Excel spreadsheet, you can actually have it where it does all that calculating for you. That's what we do at our local network here in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, is we have it all down and it automatically calculates it for us every single month. So that way we know what our retention rate is and we know what the goal is of what we need to do. So that might be something that you have your membership reach out and do, or the district vice presidents reach out to teach the local networks how to set up those spreadsheets to try and make life a little easier for them.
And Carolyn, a suggestion, since you know how to do it and you've been doing it, do a little self Zoom with a screen share, record it and throw it up on the Network 360 page so anyone could learn from that tool of how to do that.
Sounds good.
That would be successful for everyone to have to do it, and not all of the states having to recreate it. Just if you can do it and you can do it quickly in like 5-minute type thing, then post a video and that will help. Jeff, is that okay? All right, any other questions? If not, we're done. We are here for you to make this successful. You can always reach out to myself, Chris, Jamie. We are definitely here to help. Your national liaisons will be helping you. Both if you have, because some states only have a state liaison and they don't have state officers, your national liaisons will really be helping you with this.
I don't see any questions.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great
Good job,
week.
guys.